Hey, okay, cool. I guess I might as well introduce for anyone watching. Sorry for having not uploaded, I suppose, if anyone watches them. Exams and stuff like that, and school. And this year's been a little hectic with the pandemic. But yeah, today is going to be a very short thing. I kind of want to start a short series where it's just like, episodes that aren't more than 15 minutes max, right? Or I'll try to make them 15 minutes max. Um, what's up, Felix?
Hello.
why, are you, why are you sitting so close to your mic, Felix?
Can I know it?
I mean, if you want to. All right, so today I wanted to just like for the short stuff. I just kind of want to do um, like TED talks, but um, not as steezy and not as like
Not as Teddy.
not as Teddy, not as exy. So
Just talking.
just talking. So today I wanted to talk about sleep and just touch on like some things that maybe lots of people know, maybe some people don't. And yeah, all right. So I think most people know that sleep is what's it called? Sleep has like some components, and one of the major components is REM sleep, right? Um, Although most of your sleep like is spent, like a lot of it is spent in REM, but a lot of it also isn't spent in REM. Usually, for the first few REM cycles, you have around like 15 to 30 minutes of rapid eye movement sleep. And that's basically when you're dreaming, when your brain is most active in the night. The other amount of time, so the 90 minutes, the 90 to about 100 minutes, depending on like the type of person you are, it can take between 60 to 60 to 120 minutes to enter REM, and for you to start dreaming. And that's when like uh, a lot of memory consolidation happens, and a lot of like your dreaming starts to happen, and your cells start to heal and regenerate, and like fix your body, and antioxidants start to clear. And so yeah, depending on who you are, how your night's going, stress, light outside, and everything, all these things, considering all these factors and variables, can change, when you enter REM sleep. Um, and Felix, do you know how long it takes you to enter REM sleep? I don't know. It's a weird question to ask.
Do I know how long?
Yeah.
On
Like, do you have like a
specifically
phone
to
that
me.
you have a phone? You have an app that records like your movement in bed, right?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't be moving when you sleep. I think that's a different problem in itself.
I mean, apparently it takes me around 30 minutes ish
Hmm.
if I to an hour if I sleep well.
Nice.
But for example, last night I didn't
Uh,
really I didn't really sleep well, I guess. So it took me an hour and a half
you
to
said
two hours.
you said you woke up a couple times, right?
Oh yeah.
There's this cool study that some psychologists did where every time a patient would enter REM sleep, they would wake them up, and then they would go back to sleep. And so the people that the participants basically got no REM sleep at all. Funny thing was, like they didn't have drastic effects like throughout their day, right? At
Really?
least the day after. Over time, you can see some effects. But like one of the most interesting things that came out of that study was the fact that the participants, when they were able to get their REM sleep, like when they weren't being like forced to wake up from like a researcher, the the amount of REM sleep that they got was substantially higher. So it seems like bodies tend to compensate the amount of REM sleep if you don't get some during a night, as opposed to when you're able to get some. And so um, it's kind of like loading up like random access memory. It's just like once you're able to clear it, it'll clear it in one go. right? But if you
Mm.
keep building it up, so if you keep not getting REM sleep, then you'll get it, like you'll get a lot of it in one shot.
I
Um,
see.
and so, yeah, that was a really cool study to learn about. But, you know, you need REM sleep. You need like NREM sleep, because there are like stages and steps to getting sleep. And like I said, sleep has a lot of benefits. You know, not sleeping um, tends to make people, you know, stressed, drowsy, tired. Obviously.
Yeah.
Um, do you know some of? I think everybody's heard of like the chemicals involved in sleep, like melatonin.
Melatonin.
Yeah, I had a coworker who called it melatonin,
That's kind
and
of
that was like I was like, oh, I pronounced it melatonin with him next to me, and he didn't like correct himself. But I mean, to each their own. I don't really care. Um, but lots of people also don't know how they work. Um, Melatonin in your brain, at least, is a reacts as a direct function to light. So your eyes receive lots of different kinds of input, right? They receive color, motion, distance, size, light. I already said color, and they go to different parts of the brain, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, so this one in particular, what happens is um, your eyes will send information to the thalamus. So first it'll cross the optic chiasm, which is where your vision crosses. So you know how like the left side of your body is operated, or is basically operated by the right side of the brain. It's like
Mm-hmm.
contralateral nature. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with the eyes. They cross at this place called the optic chiasm, and then they go to the thalamus. And the thalamus basically, um, it's the it's the control center for where information goes, and it's got a lot of connections, and it connects different things together, different parts of the brain together. Light information goes the um, to the visual cortex, so at the back of the brain, but it also goes to the hypothalamus. Um, and the hypothalamus is basically everything involved with motivation, reward, punishment, bodily functions, like lots of things like that people don't tend to think about, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a part of the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN.
Mm-hmm.
And this receives light information, and only light information. So not exactly a 1 or a 0, but like 1 and then all the decimals between 1 and then 0. So if there's light and then there's no light. And depending on the strength, depending on the frequency of the signal, because the strength of a signal in the brain is recorded by its frequency. Like a neuron either fires or doesn't fire, and if it fires at the same, like it fires at the same amplitude every time, but it can fire quickly or slowly. You know, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
like the basic principle of neurons. Neurons can't fire strong or weak. They can fire fast or short or weak, fast or slow.
Slow.
Yeah. Um, or they can't, or they don't fire at all. Or it's harder for them to fire because they have more receptors and other like components.
To make it simple, it
It
fires.
fires or it doesn't fire, and it can fire
Yeah.
fast or it can fire slow or it doesn't fire. And so
Yeah.
basically, light information will communicate to the hypothalamus and the SCN, and the SCN specifically releases melatonin. And what melatonin does is because it's in the thalamus, something you could guess would be something related to something we don't think about, right? So it could be affecting the body in a way that indirectly affects how we're awake, right? Specifically, it helps to regulate the clocks in our body. So you have a bunch of biorhythms in your body related to like conventional time, or how processes happen in the body. And the SCN is sort of like the master clock, and it reacts as a direct function to light. And once the release of melatonin, so once it's dark outside, the release of melatonin is higher. If there's light outside, melatonin is subsequently not released as much or not released, and it starts to get your body ready to go to bed. So it starts to slow down your heart rate. It starts to calm you down, stuff like that, right?
Right.
It basically starts those biorhythms for sleep and starts to slow down or starts to change. It starts to affect things related to biorhythms that are related to being awake. And I think another common, like, wakeful and sleep related. I should mention smoking. Smoking tends to wake your brain up, right? So even if you have a sufficient amount of melatonin, that's why lots of smokers take melatonin supplements. Do you take melatonin supplements? You should ask your doctor about that. Because if you take too much, it's not good for you. Or if you take too much for your body, right?
I mean, not only is nicotine bad for you, there are other things like alcohol and heavy meals, right?
Yeah, alcohol tends to affect your cerebellum, which has a lot of is related to motion and controlled movements, and lots of any information that goes down the body has to pass through the cerebellum.
Mm-hmm.
Or cerebellum. Alcohol makes your sleep worse, even though it makes you feel sleepy. So that's why it's good to sober up a little bit before you go to bed. Nicotine, what it does is it relaxes your muscles as one thing, even though it's a what's it called? I can't think of the word right now. I'm tired.
I think you need to learn about sleep.
I need to take my own advice, get some sleep.
I know, right?
It's a stimulant. Nicotine's a stimulant. However, it relaxes your muscles, but it makes your brain more active, right? And that's a direct contradiction to what melatonin is trying to do. And so that's why if you look at some smokers or people who smoke frequently, even though their body might be trying to get used to the nicotine, and so if they don't smoke, they'll be extra tired. But if they smoke regularly and their body's normal, then they might feel the need to take melatonin because they can't get tired after having a smoke, right?
That's not good.
No, it's not good. But yeah, another thing that I did want to mention was caffeine, and specifically what caffeine tends to do. So some people think, caffeine's it wakes you up. Some people think, caffeine doesn't wake you up. It just makes you stop getting more tired. And I think both of those aren't wrong, but both of those aren't right, per se. So what caffeine does, caffeine binds to adenine receptors. What is adenine? Adenine is the neurotransmitter that's associated with ATP. Do you know what ATP is?
Do not.
It's basically energy,
Okay.
the energy your body uses and creates from the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Wow, I learned that one in school.
You learned that one in school. So it's a byproduct of when ATP is used. Adenine is it's the byproduct. It's what's released. And when an adenine receptor is blocked, two things happen. Both you start to feel more awake because your body isn't getting more tired. So, you still have systems activating and making you more awake. So let's say you take caffeine in the morning, right? Binds to adenine receptors. So you're waking up, you're using a lot of energy to wake up. You're trying to eat breakfast, get calories in, insulin goes up, leptin goes up, different systems in your stomach and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still getting tired, right? And, some people feel super tired in the morning, so they take their cup of java. Binds to adenine receptors, and so it does make you more awake to drink coffee because your body, if your body is still, if your body is like during the day or during the morning, or even during like, or even in the evening, your body, is constantly working. And so, like, God forbid it wasn't working and you took coffee.
I
um,
mean, if it wasn't working, then I think you'd be dead. Is what you're
yeah,
saying.
clinical definition. um, so it does wake you up. However, it also stops you from getting tired because the adenine receptors that were supposed to take adenine have now caffeine binded to them. So you stop feeling more tired, but you subsequently start feeling a little bit more awake depending on what time of day it is and what you're doing, right? So both answers, one's less correct than the other, but they still both of them are like technically what's going on. And everybody's different. Everybody has these things, but that's like that's basically the premise of what happens. Um, yeah, I just want to talk about sleep. Because I feel like it'd be something useful to talk about. Everybody's been losing sleep over exams and, stress of the year and all this other jazz. And, right now it's 3 a.m., but that's because we were playing video games. But, that's all good and fun.
That's not good for sleep, Alex.
It is not good for sleep.
You know,
However, yeah, but if you play games, and you can't be bothered to go to bed around midnight or 1 a.m., I recommend trying to make sure that you get to sleep before dark ends, so that your body still recognizes that, oh, dark outside means go to sleep, right? And I still recommend waking up when there's natural light outside, as opposed to waking up, around 5 p.m. in Canada in the winter where it's already pitch black outside.
I mean,
I mean, it's just so that your body's natural rhythm is still there. If your
what if
body's,
you
hmm?
what if you point a light directly at your eyes? You know,
I mean,
it's
adenine
like,
will
mhm.
still be produced because your body's like still working. However, melatonin won't be produced, and so, um,
What
it
if
will
it's mood?
be more difficult to get to go to sleep or to get more tired, if that makes sense.
No, to wake up.
What do you mean if there's light outside?
No, okay. Let's just say you wake up at 5
Mm-hmm.
and you stare directly into like your light bulb. You think that would?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like there are different ways of manipulating your body into making it think it's like light outside or dark outside. Like for me specifically, like if I want to stay up late, I'll
Mhm.
close the window blinds and keep my light on, and so my body still produces like my body's still working and still using energy, and I'm starting to get more tired because it's been like because at the end of the day, it's already been like hopefully like 12 hours by then, or 9 hours by then, and so your body's tired, but the information that's being sent to my brain is that it's still there's still you still have stuff to do. It's still awake time.
Right.
So yeah, there are different ways of like manipulating it and fixing your sleep schedule. Everybody, I think, lots of people get the notion that you need to like, oh, you know, if I want to fix my sleep schedule, I got to stay up the entire 48 hours and then go to sleep, so that I have compensatory sleep and all that stuff, and you know, but that actually doesn't have to happen. You can sleep earlier, like you can go to bed earlier than you normally would, as opposed to earlier than you currently are. So like you normally go to sleep at midnight. You end up staying until 4 a.m. and your sleep schedule has now been butchered, and now you normally go to sleep at 4 a.m. Now, if you end up going to bed at 11, it's still dark outside, and it's not great that you're not sleeping while you're in bed because you want to condition your body to only be in bed when you're sleeping, and like try to sleep most of the time in bed. But it can be really effective to try and use that previous conditioning to get your body tired enough before your normal sleep, and then get like go to sleep or like take a nap when you normally sleep. And so you can kind of fix your sleep schedule by going backwards as opposed to forwards, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
That seems really odd.
It's odd, but it's a lot healthier than staying up for 48 hours, like for 24 hours. You
Right.
just go to bed earlier, and I think you'll feel much better. I did that. Like I went to bed earlier as opposed to staying up and stuff like that, and I didn't see too much of a difference. Instead, like as opposed to um, like as opposed to having like a fucked sleep schedule or like a nasty sleep schedule, I ended up like waking up at like 6 a.m., which was good because I had work at 10.
Mm-hmm.
You know, got a little bit of lecture done or played some video games. Woke myself up. I had breakfast regularly.
That's good.
Because I had time. You wake up
Right.
early, you have time, and fixing my sleep schedule ended up making me wake up early, which like wasn't entirely the plan, but I knew my sleep schedule was gonna get pushed back anyway as time went on, so I might as well make the most out of waking up early as opposed to pushing my sleep schedule back already, right?
Right.
I feel like a good habit to get into is to get out of bed when your body wakes up. I know it's hard, but that's a really good habit to get into because because in the future you won't need to sleep in, especially for important things, or like you want to reset your alarm to the last possible second to get out of bed, and you're rushing to the shower, you're brushing your teeth with your foot, and you're wiping your butthole with soap and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Hygienic.
Sorry.
Hygienic.
Hygienic, yes, very much so. So yeah. Oh, it's 22 minutes. Okay. I think we had a decent conversation about sleep. Did you learn something? I hope you learned something.
Yeah. I have a question though
Go
before we
for
go.
it.
How does temperature affect sleep?
How does temperature affect sleep? So
Mm-hmm.
in your brain, in your hypothalamus, woohoo, going back to that, you have this thing called the preoptic area. It's called the POA, and you have some other parts of the brain that are involved with temperature regulation. But you have the preoptic area is like one of the bigger parts, and it's composed 65% temperature insensitive neurons, and they regulate your body temperature, depending on other factors. You have warm sensitive neurons, which make up, um, come on, Alex. Okay, you have cold sensitive neurons, which make up 5% of your preoptic area, and then the rest is dedicated to warm sensitive neurons. So 65, 5, 30%.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to, I can work it out. And um, what the warm sensitive neurons do is when your body's warm, they will, they will get your body to do compensatory behaviors through the sympathetic or parasympathetic nerves. So you'll start to sweat. Your heart rate will go down or up depending on, depending on how, like whether or not you're dehydrated, or, it'll, it, it's the thing that helps start a fever. So you have these things called pyrogens. I think they're called pyrogens. I can't remember specifically what they were called, but they get released as in response to like an infection and stuff like that. So your body will heat up to try and kill the infection, and that's what a fever is, right?
Mm-hmm.
What temperature is best for sleep? Honestly, it generally does depend on the person, I suppose. Like for me, I don't like it too cold, but I do like it like a little not warm, because my hands sweat a little bit
Like
more
you just
than
want to
most.
be comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, you should be
Yeah.
comfortable. Generally, um, when it's colder, it's easier to sleep. Not colder,
Really.
like when it's cooler, right? Like when it's cooler around you. So when you're under your sheets, it's good to be warm, but then
Mm-hmm.
around you shouldn't be warm, because then you'll start to cook, right? So the only place that should be warm is underneath your blanket. Does that make sense? I'm not
So
saying it should be like,
and you should
negative 20 outside of your blanket, okay?
right.
But your blanket shouldn't increase in temperature because of the outside. So like a good room temperature, 15 to 20 Celsius, and then underneath your covers is just like as warm as your covers get, and you put more blankets or less blankets on depending on how warm or cold you want it. But
Fun
basically, you don't
temperature.
want to cook and you don't want to freeze, and that's like a general rule. That's what I find. But
Okay.
I'm not a sleep psychologist. I'm not a sleep expert, not a sleep scientist. And there are definitely like articles and stuff. This is just like things that I've read in the textbook and my personal experience. And so, if what I said is not working for you and you feel like you need different help, you find that, even if your room is cool and your bed sheets are warm, you're still not getting any sleep. Maybe it's because you're staying up till 3 a.m. on the computer or your phone. You just got to stop looking at memes. I'm sorry. I had to say it. I had to say it.
But maybe you can think of memes instead.
You can think of memes. Don't do
Thinking of memes.
anything too stressful. A lot of stuff that affects sleep involves like stress. Like if you got to wake up early tomorrow, um, for me at least, I like, sometimes I have to wake up super early. And I know like I'm stressed that I'm not going to wake up, but I try to calm myself down. And my internal clock ends up being like, oh, you got to wake up early? I got you, homie. And I end up waking up before my alarm. And
That's
I
right.
don't know why, but so yeah, stress is a really big thing. Light is a really big thing. Um, Temperature, nutrition. Don't. It's harder to go to bed on an empty stomach. But don't fill yourself up to the brim right before bed because your body's gonna be like producing, like trying to be using a lot of energy, to get the to turn glucose in your body um to what's it called? Um, I can't remember. I can't. I hate remembering this, but it's basically insulin either turns your glucose into glucagon, and then glycogen turns glucagon back into glucose, or glucagon and glycogen are the switched terms. You see how I get confused.
Yeah, these are
You know
just
what? The
yeah.
semester's done. I don't need to remember this until the 11th of January because then I start up classes again. So I'll read the
And
textbook
you
again
start
right before.
stressing.
Hmm?
And you start stressing.
Nah, I don't stress. Okay, I do
Right.
stress, but I could just read the textbook. There's nothing wrong.
I mean, hopefully not when you sleep or not before you sleep.
Yeah, right. So yeah, don't watch like a really don't watch a movie that's really confusing before you go to bed.
Hmm.
I was once like I couldn't go to bed the other day because I was thinking about Tenet. If you've seen that movie, it's about like time and stuff like that. And yeah, it's really good. Anyways,
Um,
you got anything else? What's up?
no.
Nah,
I mean, like, what happens if you can't sleep? Probably shouldn't just lay there, right?
don't lay there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like go for a run, but if you can't sleep, don't train your body into thinking that the bed is not made for sleep. If you can't sleep, get up, grab a book, get up, drink a warm glass of water. Um, don't walk around. Sit in a chair. Just try not to be in your bed when you're not tired. And then when you're reading your book or you're twiddling your thumbs or whatever helps you pass the time, don't grab your phone. Just like that's a bad idea because it's light and light will create a negative response and it'll make your eyes more awake, your body more tired. You don't want that. Grab a book, do something that doesn't affect, like do something that would normally happen before or during the nighttime, um, that doesn't involve light. So yeah, I think reading a book like a paper book is one of the best things that you could do if you can't sleep. So get out of bed, you know, try to make sure that you're nice and cozy in your pajamas or whatever. Um,
Kindles
go.
are pretty good too.
Sorry,
Kindles are pretty good too.
candles
Kindle.
are good for
No,
scent.
no, not candles.
Hmm?
Kindle.
Kindle. Oh,
Yeah,
like the
because
the
it uses e-ink.
yeah.
So what
Kindles
it
are
is,
fine. Kindles
yeah.
aren't too bad. I can't remember if there was something related to them that said they were good or bad, but I've heard that they're pretty good.
I
I
know
was
they
gonna
don't
say candles
produce
aren't
any light.
like inherently bad because they have like aromas and stuff like that. Sometimes that can help, but it's light too, right? Like it's a fire. It's light. So,
Music,
hmm?
music.
Music is good. Music can be good. I used to sleep to songs. I used to sleep to "Feels Like Summer" by Childish Gambino.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
I like that one.
it's nice and relaxing. You can feel it in the heat. I don't sing.
You
Yeah.
can listen to gunshot. No, I'm kidding.
I used to go to sleep to rock, like
I used to listen to
Cut to
metal.
Follow, Murder Melody,
Oh,
Cut to
yeah.
Follow, um, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called. Maybe I can find it. It's on my SoundCloud. You
Uh,
can feel it in the heat on a day like it feel like summer.
yeah, I don't.
um, yeah, used to go to
I
you
used to
like
listen to
song
the
like it
new
just
soundtrack.
whatever whatever your cup of tea is. Leave it all behind. That's the other song by Cut to Follow. That's their
Right.
popular one. Yeah,
I don't have that one
it's a good
downloaded.
one. It's a good one.
I know
This
it's
one
good.
turned into a regular podcast. That's okay. I'll just make it a regular podcast. That's okay. But I do want to start like short segments where it's just like, a couple questions. Boom, you're done the episode. You know what I mean?
Boom, you done.
Boom, you done. Yeah. What's up? You got anything else? I can talk about other things. If you got more questions about that, Um,
So, how about that circadian rhythm?
circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is directly affected by things like the SCN and melatonin. Um, you have different proteins in you that also affect um, uh, your like circadian rhythm. Like things like per and tim proteins and clock proteins. I'm not gonna get too much into that. Partly because I don't remember and I'm a bad student, uh, but also because I think it's like outside the
Circadian.
scope of trying to get people to like you know digest psychology. Um,
You don't really
um,
need to know what proteins go into your body
yeah, you don't really
technically.
need to know what kind of proteins your DNA makes specifically for different points in time, and if you're like a night owl or if you're a morning guy. Actually, adolescents tend to have like what's it called? A mean level change as like a group where they stay up later, so they become night owls, and then as they enter adulthood, um, they they tend to stay up less and less, um, and they end up opting to wake up early and sleeping earlier, and that just happens to be like a cohort shift, right? So like one cohort will, as they go through the age, if when they enter adolescence, they tend to be more night owls and more night owl like, and then as they enter adulthood, they tend to be more early bird like, and that's just what the trend kind of shows, right?
So, speaking about age,
What's up?
how many hours should I be getting?
So, a good amount of sleep is 5 to 6 sleep cycles. And so a sleep cycle, like I said earlier, can be between 60 to 120, but generally it's 90 minutes, like average for most people. Um, and so 90 times 5 is 450. 450 is 7.5 hours, I believe. No, it's not. It should be. I'm gonna go to my calculator real quick because I don't trust myself.
You're just gonna edit
Seven
this
and a
part
half
out.
hours. There we go. It is 7.5 hours. 420 is 760s and then add 30. So yeah, around 450 minutes. So 7.5 hours of sleep to 9 hours of sleep is a good amount of sleep. So if you get 8 hours of sleep, that's pretty good. You've gone through 5 sleep cycles because at that point, the amount of non-REM sleep that you have is very low. So usually NREM sleep, so like stages of sleep. So when you go from very very deep sleep, stage 4 sleep, where you have very very calm waves, to very very to stage 2, which is like um, very high sleep, and stage 1 sleep, and NREM sleep, where it's very active sleep. Your brain is very active and dreaming and memory consolidation,
And your moves move from left to right really fast.
and your your eyes move from left to right very quickly. Yes. Um, that tends to decrease as you enter and exit more sleep cycles. Um, and there are different like mechanisms in the brain that help you enter and exit sleep cycles. And so, you know, as one sleep cycle goes, another sleep cycle's proteins are, negatively or are negatively produced or negatively produced are their production is negatively impacted, and then as time goes on, um, they start to come back, and other proteins start to get them to start coming back, and then so you enter REM sleep, and then vice versa for REM sleep. Um, but this tends to happen less often as time goes on, and you tend to have more REM sleep um, during later cycles. So, around the 4.5 to 5 hour mark, you'll probably have substantially more amount of time dedicated to REM sleep than, if it was the first sleep cycle, right? Like the first sleep cycle, maybe you have no more than 15 to 40 minutes of REM sleep. But then as you enter, your fifth and sixth sleep cycle, you'll end up having, around, I don't know, 30 to 50 minutes, let's say, or, an hour's worth of REM sleep. That's like an over exaggeration of the amount of dreaming you'll get, but that's like the general trend. I'm not saying, oh, if I sleep for 16 hours, Alex, does that mean I'll get like 2 full hours of dreaming? Like, no, you can't. You're not a baby. Babies sleep 16 hours in the day. But as you get older, you tend to need less and less sleep. For adults and adolescents, 7.5 hours is what I try to get. It's like my gold standard. 6 hours if it's a homework night. 4.5 hours if it's a normal homework night. 6 hours if it's a light homework night. You know what I mean?
You should probably shoot for more, but
I probably should shoot for more. I should probably play less video games, But I feel like everybody can get more sleep. I feel like lots of people tend to have poor sleep. Because you don't do anything when you sleep. You're just there. You're not doing anything.
It's a really big waste of time.
It's a big waste of time. A
Yeah,
third of the amount of life you have is dedicated to the bed. Like, okay, all right, Jimmy Fallon, relax.
Jimmy Fallon.
I don't know. It's the first name that came up in my brain.
Fair enough.
My brain or my mind? Ooh.
Oh damn.
Ooh, damn. Philosophical. God. So yeah, the amount of sleep that you need tends to go down with age. But that doesn't mean if you hit 200 that you won't need any sleep. That doesn't make sense. You still need sleep. It'll tend to plateau, like have a bottom plateau.
You've ascended when you reach 200 years old.
When you hit 200 years old, you stay awake for 24 hours. 24 hours, 8 days a week, 600 days a year.
Oh man, think about how productive you
Think about how productive. I mean, you'd probably be bedridden, old
Yeah.
and crusty, and like your bones brittle. But not me. I'm gonna live forever.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna live forever.
All right. You want to bet on that?
Do I want to bet on that? Yeah, I'll bet on that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'll bet you an ice cap.
Oh damn.
Damn.
Ice cap.
It's on, dude. I love iced cappuccinos.
In your well, one ice cap.
Pour an ice cap out on my grave. Pay me. That's the type of respect that I'm gonna get. Just somebody pouring an ice cap on my grave. God.
Leave ice caps around.
Oh my god, it's gonna be
good.
filthy.
I mean,
I'm gonna have raccoons in my grave, dude.
There are people that clean up the cemetery. You'll be fine.
Yeah, they clean up the ice cap from the dirt. Come on.
Oh no.
I don't want to be buried though. That's a lot of money, dude.
That
Just
is a lot.
plant me a tree, dude. I want to be a tree.
I want
I
to
want my
remember.
kid to fuck under me.
Oh no,
I don't know. I heard that somewhere. I can't remember where I heard that.
that fucks hard.
That does fuck hard. Yeah. Sleep, very important. Lots of
What?
memory consolidation happens during sleep. And I know
What?
I just kind of said that, but basically memory consolidation is when your memories become solidified, when your memories travel from the part of the brain that they start and they move to different areas of the brain. So memory, there's been a lot of research done um, for memory and like where it goes and what brain parts are important, and what's the difference between short-term memory and working memory. But basically, for long-term memory, um, if if your brain dedicates energy into remembering something, voice crack. If your brain dedicates energy into remembering something, so like there have been like tons of studies where what they'll do is they'll bring participants in, they'll get them to memorize like words and pictures, and then right after the remembering task, there's a memory test task, um, and those what's it called? Those images or words that are remembered best, um, they'll the words that are remembered best would have shown activity um, in the, for instance, the left inferior frontal gyrus. That's like a component involved in phonetic and like word related memory. And so if the brain shows activity in the left IFG during the encoding phase, which is when you're trying to memorize stuff, then what's it called? It will then fuck, I can't remember specifically what other part of the brain from that study was. It was one study in fucking one lecture of this class. Um, but basically, if you have activity in that part of the brain during encoding, then you will correctly remember um, that word or image, and activity will spike in the hippocampus, which is a big part of memory. It's usually where memories go to be stored, as well as like your um, left inferior temporal gyrus, which is another place memories tend to get stored first. And then when you go to sleep, memories start to go into different parts of the brain. So if it's a visual memory, it might go to the visual cortex. If it's like a memory where you touch something, or a memory where you saw a picture of someone's face, there are different parts of the brain that are involved in face perception, are involved in tactile perception, are involved in auditory perception, are involved with auditory tasks, visual tasks, tactile. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So those parts of the brain that are dedicated to the different parts of the different activities will usually hold memories related to that specific attribute of that memory. It's a mouthful, but that happens during sleep. You need to sleep. You can't not sleep. All of this talking and trying to remember.
Unless you live to 200, trust.
Unless you live to 200, in which case, if you do live to 200, please come see me. We have some talking to do. How much sleep do you get? And how much do you remember, you dementia ridden patient? Most people by the age of 70 will have gotten dementia or some form of cortical or subcortical dementia. It just tends to happen. I think it's like 75% of the population gets that or something like that. I can't remember the statistic, but it's like a high amount.
Can't remember, huh?
I have early onset Alzheimer's. Ugh, I should not joke about that. Um, I mean,
Cross
maybe.
your fingers.
Cross my fingers. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, seeing people with like cortical issues is another level, you know? Like, yeah, I'm not gonna go into it.
It just hits different.
Dude, I'm just not vibing anymore. God, I hate that word.
Wonder how you'd be vibing if you lived to 200.
I wonder how I would be vibing if I lived to 200. If I lived to 200, dude, not. What do you mean I'm gonna live 200? I'm gonna live to infinity. I told you I'm gonna live forever.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, dude.
But let's just say you're not you and you live to 200.
If I'm not me and I live to 200,
Mm-hmm. Let's say you're a regular person that won't live forever.
um,
You think you'd still be vibing?
yeah, I feel like I'd still be vibing in my own way, you know. Like maybe
Just not vibing too hard. Just yeah.
yeah, I can't vibe too hard, but you know, I'm old, so probably be like barely able to move, and um, I mean, you know, if I'm imagining me as someone else, of course,
Of course, of course.
probably be
Right,
like
right.
hard of a lot of cortical function. So you know, hard of hearing, hard of movement, hard of vision. Well,
Hard, just
just
hard,
life is hard.
just hard. Yeah.
um, yeah, like lots of things tend to happen when you get older. You know, memory starts to decay. Um, like among other things that start to decay, like your body. Um,
Doesn't your skin become like more transparent?
wrinkly.
Like,
Your skin becomes like as you grow older, you start to lose acetylcholine bonds and receptors in your um your neuromuscular junction, which is basically the parts of your muscles that receive information from the brain to contract and relax. So, like, you know, when you start to flex, right? If you flex your arm right now and you try to touch your shoulder and then you stretch your arm out, it's basically your brain communicating with your all the muscles in your arms, um, with different amounts of acetylcholine, and that you know tends that very fine amount of movement originates from M1, which is the primary motor cortex, which is at the back of the frontal lobe. Um, but Alex, why is it in the frontal lobe? I thought the frontal lobe was used for very, very fine things and very, very precise things and like, deep thinking. Well, I mean, parts of the frontal lobe, especially the prefrontal cortex, is involved with a lot of thinking, deep processing. And that's why humans have the biggest prefrontal cortex out of most, if not all, animals as compared to other parts of the brain. So, like, our prefrontal cortex makes up a third of our brain, if you didn't know.
I did not know.
And, that's involved with, like I said earlier, like um, word encoding, semantic encoding, different things like problem solving abilities in your rostrolateral prefrontal cortex. In your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, you have things like, damn, I can't remember. Oh, you have emotional networks in your DLPFC, and you have other things in your DLPFC like, you have like attention and like the resources that attention has start in the DLPFC, and the cingulate cortex, which is in the middle and stuff, but don't worry about that. DLPFC is part of the attentional network, as opposed to the default network. And parts of the prefrontal cortex are involved in the default network, which is like imagination, mind wandering. Like when you're daydreaming and you don't notice you're daydreaming, that's the default network. When you're drawing and you're just being creative, that's the default network. When you're building stuff in Minecraft, and you're just like you have an idea and you're building from that idea exactly, or like piece by piece, and you're imagining and putting it together. That's the default network and the attentional network working in tandem, as opposed to them working, what's it called, as anti-correlational. And so the prefrontal cortex is very, very like big and important. Um, and so the frontal lobe, very important for very fine, very deep processing thinking, stuff like that, right? And so it's important that parts of the body also correlate with that kind of stuff. And so you need your body to do very precise movements with your fingers and stuff. Like I can wiggle my fingers, all the tendons are moving to like the way I want them to move and in tandem with my muscles. And if I reach out and grab something, there's multiple muscles and different parts of my body working together. When I'm running or climbing, or if I'm playing stuff on the computer, but then at the same time looking over on my second monitor to Discord, and then trying to listen to see if my mom is in the kitchen, and then also looking at my phone because I have my phone there because I'm a I don't know, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a bunch of things working together, and especially muscles that need very precise, very defined things to do. And right next to your primary motor cortex is your primary sensory cortex, and that's involved with tactile, like primary sensory cortex and primary tactile thing. And oh, why if you need to find stuff there, why isn't it part of the frontal lobe? I thought frontal lobe was good for, like, what if you burn your hand? Well, I mean, if you burn your hand, it sends a signal very fast. And you have other things in your body that help generate reflexes, like interneurons and what's it called? PCGs, PC generators, or PCP generators. I forgot what the thing was called. Common pattern generators, or pattern something generators. I can't remember. But then you have a bunch of automatic systems and fine details, and yeah, that's why. Anyways, so yeah, when you get older, I think I've talked a lot.
It's really evolved from sleep, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, like sleep helps you rebuild lots of things. Lets your microglia clean up all the dead macroglia, like astrocytes and oligodendrocytes. But Schwann cells are more, part of the ANS instead of the CNS. But even though there's like, nerves that come down from the CNS, there's less so oligodendrocytes in the body, or there are less so Schwann cells in the brain as opposed to the body. I feel like, because lots of the CNS is in the brain, and the ANS. By CNS and ANS, I mean central nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Right, like you have a lot of. So this sped up part, a friend of mine joined randomly, and we're just discussing what he's gonna do and what we're doing after, and the podcast should resume now.
He's just chilling.
He's just chilling. I mean, we've gone on a lot. I think I talked a lot about sleep, but yeah, when you get older, your neuromuscular junction, which I talked about, tends to decay, among other things that start to decay, like brain cells and skin cells, and when your neuromuscular junction starts to decay and other things like that, and other parts of the muscles start to decay, you start to look wrinkly and you can't move as much. And that's why when you look wrinkly, they inject Botox into you, because Botox makes the skin look flat and very, like, you can like slap it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's very flat.
Or slap. Did you say about slap?
Huh? I mean, it's fun to slap flat things. That's a tongue twister. Not really.
I don't know about that one.
You're telling me every time you see like a flat desk, you don't want to just like smack it and be like, "This is absurd," even though there's like nothing going wrong.
This is absurd.
Everything.
Like, I like slapping other things too. Like, I don't know, like a cup, like a mug.
Slap a mug.
Yeah, I don't know, like just like,
Sure.
I don't know.
I think this conversation is somewhat devolving from what our main thing is.
Just
the main takeaways from today.
You need sleep.
You need sleep. Don't go to sleep stressed. If you can't sleep, try to get yourself tired and then go back to bed. Um, Light and time of day and other rhythms are um, are are what affects when you sleep and how tired you get. Um, um, oh, I did wanna talk about a theory that I had. Like how everybody's like inside nowadays because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
I think everybody's sleep is getting pushed back as a consequence of not being able to go outside and use energy in the day,
Ooh,
and so you feel less tired, so you don't want to go to bed. Does that make sense?
it does make sense. Yeah.
Right? And you're inside the whole time. The light's always on. If it gets dark in your room, you turn the light on. Your SCN does not produce melatonin. You don't get tired. Like this theory is like pretty. You know, I mean, I'm just a student, but what do I? So what do I know? But um, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. It's a pretty basic hypothesis that 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 I could probably test out using a quasi experimental design. And I just record stuff like, ooh, you know what? I'm gonna do that
Tune in next week.
next week when the
Tune in next.
pandemic when the pandemic's over. I'll bring up my results,
No,
but I'm gonna write it down.
when your study is over, because
My study
it'll.
will be over after the pandemic finishes.
Oh, okay.
Once people go back to their daily routine, like so after the first semester of after the pandemic, we will. I'll release my results. So yeah,
That might still be a whiles away.
I think that's a
Ways
good
away.
thing to end off on. Some food for thought. Do you think people's sleep is generally being pushed back because everybody's inside and they're less tired from not going outside and using that energy and keeping the light on, as opposed to going outside, doing all your tasks, coming home when it's dark, getting a nice meal, and then going to bed? You know what I mean?
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
You should not eat food before going to sleep.
That is true. That is another thing. So get some sleep. Don't be stressed when you go to sleep. Um, all these things we talked about. Um, yeah. Do you have anything else? Do you have any closing statements?
We should probably go to sleep since
We
it's
should
approaching
probably go
4
to
a.m.
sleep. It is. It is. Let me see. Let me pull up Google time.
It's 3:41.
It's 3:41. It is 3:41.
It's
Ooh.
approaching 4 a.m. So I mean,
Yeah, it's better than the 4 a.m., but now it's called the PsycholoVibe.
facts.
Facts, no printer.
Hmm.
Anyways, I hope you have a good night, Felix. Uh,
Good
and
night.
to anybody else who watched, I hope you have a good night's sleep.